Hey guys, so what is up? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Bama Jaybird Resell. I'm Josh. It's always great to have you with me today. And today we are going to be looking at what I would call a beginner's guide to men's Levi's jeans, specifically what we need to be buying for resale on eBay. Now we're going to begin this beginner's guide by simply looking at factors you need to be aware of in order to identify those that may have good value. And this all starts with the vintage market, guys. That's where it all begins. Vintage is still king of the hill. I will say this just in general. I know there are literally a few 100,000 men's Levi's listed all the time, 300,000-400,000, and maybe like 100,000 sales over 90 days. But guys, even though that may seem like a slow rate of sale, there are really good niches within this category that we need to learn about and be aware of and know what to look for. And vintage, surprise, surprise, right, is still king of the hill like it is in so many areas and categories. Vintage Levi's, specifically men's jeans that are vintage Levi's, are really, really good to watch for. So let's take a look at some identifying trademarks that you need to be aware of if you start to source in this category. So the first thing you want to look for when you are trying to identify if a pair of Levi's is vintage is the tab on the back pocket. If you see a capital E in Levi's on that tab, then you're probably onto something really good. Those that have a capital E are just referred to as the big E Levi's, and those are going to be older, okay? So those are going to be like 60s, maybe early 70s, but then on back. And that is something you're going to want to do more research on in order to be able to determine the value, because that's where, again, some of the highest value sales, a few hundred, even up to a few $1,000s, will occur when you find Levi's that have that tab with the big E. Now, just because it has a big E does not mean that it is genuine. In fact, there are a lot of fakes made because of the value. And not only are there fakes, but there's even modern versions made by Levi's themselves that are genuine reproductions that also can have really good value. So either way, if you see a big E, you need to do some research and try to determine, one, if it's real, and two, is it real modern or is it real vintage? Let me say this, men's Levi's jeans are like many other things that we source, guys. It's all about knowing which ones to buy and getting them for a cheap price. So just keep that in mind as we go forward with this. Some other things you want to watch out for in order to identify those big E jeans and make sure that they are authentic would include the zipper. So look on the actual zipper tab and look for things like Scoville, gripper zipper, and Talon. If you see one of those three words on the zipper, then you probably have a genuine article. I know that's only one extra factor, but generally that's enough to be able to narrow it down. Now, I realize someone could make a fake pair, maybe have a fake tab, even include a vintage zipper. So, we want to look for some other things for sure. We want the denim to be selvedge. And it's kind of like that. If it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, flies like a duck, quacks like a duck, all these different things, we get enough factors lining up together, we can generally assume that we have something authentic. And so selvedge denim is where you want to turn the leg inside out and look where the denim is sewn together. And on the outer edges of it, if it is selvedge, it's not going to have any stitching holding it together. Instead, it's going to have like a white area, and it is already like it's got a seam at the edge already. That's going to be your older denim, your higher quality denim, and your most valuable Levi's that you will find in the vintage category. So always check for selvedge. And selvedge is even good in modern ones. If you can find any modern jeans made with selvedge denim, Japan still produces some. There's some special markets, some brands that use it. And generally those brands are going to be higher priced and going to be good for resale, whether it's Levi's or not. But look for that selvedge denim. Another thing to always pay attention to is made in USA. That's a quick check that you can do on any Levi's to determine whether or not it may be vintage. You can look on the back patch where it's got the 2-horse label, and a lot of times you'll find it there, but if not, you can find where it was made on the inside care tags of the Levi's. Now, a quick note, if you see a whole series of tags, like long silky tags, it's modern. You can just kind of eliminate that from the equation. But if you find little small papery tags in the waist or down on the leg, then generally you've got something that is vintage, and you'll find that it oftentimes will say made in USA. So again, 20 years old is considered vintage, so some things after 2000 are technically vintage. So you might find some Levi's, from that era that are not made in USA. But still, again, we're really looking for pre-2000 stuff if we can find it, like Y2K and before. So we mentioned the tab on the back pocket already, but to go back to that, another thing that will identify a pair of Levi's as vintage can be the color of that tab. If that tab is orange, then it can be as old as the 1960s. Of course, if it was, it would also have a big E, so it can be the combination of orange with the big E. In general, when you see the orange tab, what you're finding is one of the earlier versions of styles that are probably not orange tab anymore. It could be a 505, a 517, a 550, but those are going to be vintage and more valuable than their red tab counterparts of the same style. So watch out for those especially. Those can also be good, especially look for boot cuts, bell bottoms, and again, even 505s that are orange tab can have good value. Now, I mentioned paper care tags already. Just in general, seeing a paper care tag is a good indication that you're on to a vintage pair of Levi's. This, again, can be in the waist. It could be near the pocket. It could be on the inside of the leg, in the upper part of the leg. But those are places you may find that, and that's a good indicator of vintage jeans. Another thing to watch for is vintage silver tab. If you see silver tab written on them, they have remade some silver tabs, you know, that are modern. But if you find true vintage Y2K, these aren't always made in USA, by the way. You'll find them made in other places like South America, Central America, maybe Mexico. But if you find these, they can be very, very good, you know, like $50, $70, $80, you know, and up sometimes, depending on the size and the color and that type of thing, what they're made out of. The silver tab is great to look for, and also any out of production styles. Now, Levi's will put certain styles out of production sometimes for a period, like the silver tab, and bring it back. And so these things kind of ebb and flow, but anytime you find something that's not currently being produced and has a very small amount on the market, that often drives the price up and makes it very good as well. Now, while vintage is the king of the heel still, right, for Levi's men's jeans, we also need to pay attention to non-vintage items, and I'm going to give you a few things to look for on those that will help you be able to narrow down, is it something that's got really, really good value? Now, again, this is a beginner's guide. This is like, if you're just looking for kind of like the more home run style, the big hitters, you're not looking for a lot of bread and butter, these are the things that you need to look for. So number one, look for Levi's Premium and Levi's Made and Crafted. Those are going to be your higher echelon Levi's that are made currently. They have a higher price point because they often include selvedge denim. They are going to be, you know, just a higher quality. So a lot of these are made in Japan. Levi's LVC is also really good to watch out for. That's Levi's Vintage Clothing, another little sub line of Levi's that is authentic, that can hold great value. They often will still use a big E on the label. They've reintroduced that, or not on the label, but on the tabs, maybe on the label too on the inside. But, you know, again, they are authentic reproductions of Levi's products from the past. Look for those collaborations I mentioned. They collaborate with companies like Disney and Supreme and Coca-Cola and Nike. I mean, all kinds of, even like Pokemon or Kenzo, many different collaborations out there. If you find a Levi's collaboration, whether it be jeans, jackets, whatever, but especially the men's jeans, make sure you grab those. So they got all kinds of stuff out there you need to be watching for. If you see it, it's probably a good idea to look it up at least and see, does it have value? Because oftentimes the value is really good. Some other general things to pay attention to that can often make even a modern pair of Levi's have good value include anything that makes it different, unique, or styles that maybe you haven't seen before, graphic prints, different stitching patterns, patches, that sort of thing. It doesn't even have to be original from factory. It can be things that other people have done, embellishments such as embroidery work, stitch work, you know, you name it, right? I mean, anything that kind of makes it stand out, that can sometimes create a separate market or make it more desirable and therefore a good pickup. So look for that. Watch out for white oak cone denim. That's a thing that they're using with the 501s now, and those are a little higher price when you buy them originally. So the resale is also higher on those. So if you see a label inside of it, inside the waist that says white oak cone denim, that's going to be the older style denim, and those do really well on the resale market as well. Other general things to watch for include like new with tags items. Those always do better than in the newer versions, right, than others will. So be sure that you pick those up if the price is really good. Again, it's all about the price. The price has got to be right, whether it's vintage. I mean, look, you may be able to find a pair of big E jeans, but if they want $300 for them, you may not have any room. And then again, maybe it's a $300 pair that you can get $2,500 for. It just all depends. It's all relative. So you got to do the research even when you have some knowledge to work with. Now, fashion trends are also important. Baggy, boot cut, bell bottoms, just those, even when they're not necessarily the trending style, there's generally a group of people that are looking for those things, and it creates its own market. So they do sell well and sell for better money. But again, anything that's been customized, acid wash, if you can find any of those from the 80s, was really popular, and those can sometimes do really well. Look for jeans that, even if they're not vintage, have signs of wear and being worn broken in. There's a term you'll see sometimes, a keyword called whiskers. It's where like along the pockets area, it's got like lines across it, like where they bunch up and it rubs, you know. That can be a good thing if it's from natural wear especially. That's what people really like. They like it to look natural, look authentic. So look for that. Look for any signs of distressing. Even stains aren't necessarily a bad thing if it gives it character that like adds to it, right? And sometimes that makes it worth more money. So frays, holes that aren't, like in an inappropriate place, all those things can add value. So look for that stuff. All of those characteristics can help even move a modern pair of Levi's. All right, so that's just some general characteristics of both vintage and modern men's Levi's jeans that everyone who is looking to source them for eBay needs to be aware of. That will help you quickly narrow down whether or not it is a really great item or not. And then from there, you just kind of have to make the decision whether you want to venture on into like the bread and butter portion of this category. And we'll look at that more in the next video when we go over some styles of modern Levi's that will still resell well if you can find them, for the right price. And we'll go over those. And also, of course, we'll look at some of the vintage market in those same styles and what kind of price you can expect for those. All right, guys, so I tried to keep it short today. I tend to go a little too long, but hopefully you got something out of this video. I wanted to just kind of hit you with just kind of an introduction and the basics to begin with. I'm going to do at least another video or two following this up, helping you further mine down into this category of men's Levi's jeans. We may even do some on women's Levi's and some other topics down the road, but be watching for those. And the best way to get it is to subscribe if you haven't already, hit that notification bell. And also, if you don't mind, let me know what you think in the comments. Drop me a comment. If there's something that you want to know about, something I need to go into deeper detail on, be sure to let me know, and I'll do my best to work on a video about that in the future. Guys, as always, I love you. Thank you for being here. God loves you even more than I do. And whatever you do, don't you ever, ever give up. I'll see you on the next one.